2. Can you reboot and give me that? This was actually this is an intentional error as opposed to an unintentional error. In general, the only thing you will run into is if your init ramfs is not all inclusive, like you don't have every single module compiled. When you boot, there will be something missing, like it'll detect. It won't have a driver for the graphics card that you have, or it won't have network drivers. Wireless, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So the step would be, which I haven't actually taken this step yet, is to compile an init ramfs that includes everything, or as much of everything as you need. That will probably be what basically gives you the best out-of-box experience on any random hardware. I don't think that hardware detection, it used to be more finicky. Before UDEV, before UDEV took over the responsibilities it has now, before HAL, you needed special scripts. Kudzu was the one I believe used on Mandrake. You needed these special scripts to probe the hardware and load the modules, but the need for that is much less these days. Most things are auto-detected as long as you have the right modules installed.
Is it the new hardware or the new software?
A little bit of both, but it's mostly, I mean, Linux kernel is a lot more plug-and-play friendly ever since the 3.0 release. I mean, they've made...
But what hardware can it go back as far as with
they can't go back to 386s, so not anymore. They removed that.
486.
They moved 486 too?
No.
Oh, 486 is still there?
Maybe.
I don't even have a 486, so I can't say.
I have one. This way.
Okay.
So we're going to go into Media Art. We're going to copy our VM Linux. Trivia here, does anyone know why it's called VM Linux Linux? No one probably cares. The original Linux kernel, or sorry, the original Unix kernel on AT&T Unix was called VM Unix because it supported virtual memory, which was
QEMM and EMM, right?
Well, I believe this was virtual memory on older microcomputer, not microcomputer, mini computer systems.
Mainframe servers, yeah.
Well, they weren't mainframes. Mini computers weren't mainframes. Mainframes were like this room. A mini computer would only be about as big as this little table over here. So the kind of thing that you can have in your math department at a university.
In it, not around it.
Around it.
A Cray 2. IBM 7020.
Well, I'm thinking like the PDP-11 and so on.
PDP-11.
So we have new init ramfs and do that. By the way, you might notice a little nervous tick. I use UDisks, which is a daemon that runs and handles unmounting. And if it takes more than a few seconds to unmount something, which it can on a slow USB device, it sort of dies and the mount point doesn't go away. So I just type sync before I unmount things. It's almost never needed unless I was copying like a lot of files, but it's a good habit to be in. Okay. So the init ramfs and the VM Linux that I just copied do have ext2 kernel module, which it still may fail for another reason. I can't, this part of this, if it fails this time, it will fail with me expecting it to work, so you can laugh. Oh, but you can also laugh if I don't actually do F12 and tell it to boot from a different device. If I hit left arrow, it will give me, there we go. And the Lexar's arts. So there's syslinux. There's loading the kernel. The kernel's running. The kernel's printing out slowly diagnostic information indicating that our USB devices are slow. Spin Linux or SPin Linux. Oh wow, I screwed that up, didn't I? We can fix this though.
While you're still booted in?
Probably. Actually, I'm just gonna be devious and completely copy. I think that will work. Unless the BusyBox installed.
-S.
Because there's just the directory full of symlinks anyway. BusyBox is in the root directory.
Symlinks.
Yeah, and that's getting complicated. All right, so let me do that. I'm going to reboot it now, just so that I could try to manually mounting it too with pivot root, but I don't want to. That's the kind of thing when you find yourself running
F12?
pivot root.
F12.
When you find yourself running pivot root too late. I sort of actually changed the boot order when I made it display on the monitor. So when I look over here, the screen's off, so it's like, oh, it's not ready yet. Oh, it's crap. It's doing that thing. If anyone knows, occasionally the BIOS on my ThinkPad.
Gave me ThinkPad.
What?
Gave me ThinkPad.
Why?
Is
we're
not a
combined for it.
ThinkPad, it's a
Not-
ThinkPad.
ThinkBreak.
And when it
How's that
bypasses
newer?
your-
After a certain number of soft reboots, it doesn't like it doesn't listen to things that interrupt the boot process, and I actually have to do a hard boot to fix that. It's sort of unusual. It's done it the whole time I've had it. It's not a new thing.
Is it a fast start thing?
It might be. I disabled
You
quick.
should disable
I
fast
disabled
start,
quick
and
boot.
there's two other flavors of things you need to disable as well. I don't remember, but it's splashed all over every stinking page on it.
Tisk,
It
tisk,
sounds
tisk.
good. Art, you're not clean.
Does not exist.
Warning, non-parve USB.
Hmm? Did I create the symlink in the wrong directory? Oh no, you know what? I didn't reboot cleanly, not cleanly. So that when it just fixed those errors, when it wasn't clean, it just lost the file that I added.
Well, it's the whole directory.
Yeah. Everything that already existed there was fine. So we will do
Dash R.
what?
Why not Dash R?
Dash H preserves permissions.
But don't you still need Dash R for the cursiveness?
It implies R.
You're copying a directory.
What? You can't copy a directory itself with CP unless you do A or R. A implies R. A also, A stands for archive, which means copy everything. So I just verified it's there. I've typed sync multiple times. We are going to, I'm typing this blind, by the way. Have I typoed anything yet?
Can't see.
Remount, comma, RO.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, we've remounted it read-only, which now means when I reboot, see if it'll listen to F12. Yay! It'll only be the second time on quick boot or whatever option it is. Steals.
Fast start, I'm sorry.
I did find an interesting thing. If I don't turn on the performance governor on an older K8 processor, the amount of latency that it takes switching between processor states means my computer is almost unusable. Because when it was originally, the power management stuff was put into it, I don't think they thought you would be switching power states from low to high as often as.
You don't have a terminal.
Yeah! That's actually cool. That's an error I wasn't expecting though. What we have a problem with now is that the root directory doesn't have any dev, it doesn't have a device file system. All that would need to be done to fix that, if I could type anything, would
Which you
be,
can't.
yes, which I can't, would be a dev directory. So I cheated. I'll actually get back into my normal system and tell you how I created this, the one that works. Which is where I was going with this talk anyway. Where I was going with this is don't use a live CD distro, don't use a live USB distro. At least use a live CD distro if you're still using CDs. But don't use a live CD distro on a USB drive. A USB drive is like a hard disk, it's very slow. So with getting the bootloader installed on it, you can just treat it like a regular system. Back in the days as a Debian user, before I decided to be a Arch Linux user hipster or whatever, I was a Debian user for many years. And in Debian-based systems, including Ubuntu, there's a tool, which I can't show you because I'm running Arch Linux, called debootstrap, that you can pass a target release. This would be, what's the current long-term support name for Ubuntu?
3.12.
The
The
name.
name is.
1304, I think.
The name. It's usually by the
No,
name.
no,
Long-term.
LTR is still the oh, you're right, it's 1304 for 60.
Do you know does anyone know its code name?
Uh,
I forgot it.
Merciless Smearcat, Michael Moore.
Precise something.
That's 12.
Poignant Pixie or something.
Poignant Pixie. I'll go with it. So whatever the short name is, when it was Lucid. So you say debootstrap, name of the release, which can be like Lucid or whatever the current short name. It's not going to be the full name. It's just going to be the short name that's like what's in the app list. It'll be whatever's in your app sources list.
Ringtail.
It'll be whatever's in your app sources list. And then optionally a mirror to download the packages from. And debootstrap will download all of the Debian packages and basically set up a system in a directory which you could have mounted on a thumb drive. In Arch Linux land,
In answer to your question,
yeah,
Roaring Ringtail.
so it's probably roaring.
That is-
Roaring Ringtail.
Yeah, it's probably
Raring,
R-A-R-A-G.
Raring.
Anyway, so in Arch Linux land, by the way, I'll tell you this because this was trying to find out what package this was a little bit annoying because my skills with Pacman are still not that good. So there's a package called Arch install scripts, and it basically includes a thing called ArchTroop, a thing called GenFS-Tab, and a thing called Packstrap. This is what the Arch Linux install CD has installed in it. If you install it on your main system, if you're assuming you're using Arch, it does basically what the debootstrap does with the command Packstrap. So what I did to make the one that works is I actually ran Packstrap. Oh, the joys of having a 3,000 line limit on your shell history. I ran that. Actually, I ran that multiple times. Originally, I had the base system, which was back there, is base. So to do that now, I'll get basically a working system, in theory. So we will mount.
So if we need this, come to you. Okay.
No. I can't. The reason I can't have to be general here is I don't know what distro you're using. If you tell me what distro you're using, if you say I'm using Ubuntu, then you will run debootstrap, the name of the directory that you have mounted, and the name of the release of Debian or Ubuntu that you want, and it will download everything, and it will be a basically bootable system. You are responsible for providing a kernel image and an RD image which you can copy from a running known working system. Or you can install the Debian package that installs an RD and the kernel. But the point that I'd like to get across is the fact that it's really, I won't say that it is simple, but it's not nearly the amount involved that it would be on the old days of using a live CD, because you to remaster this, to upgrade the kernel, you just replace the kernel file or install a kernel package, because it's just like a real system.
So So you don't need kernel, just general confusion, corporal punishment.
What?
In major pain.
Oh, I get it.
If you wanted to create something like this on a CD and make your own live CD, could you do that too?
Live CD, I mean, yeah, you could always master a file system like this. I believe CD booting is more convoluted because of the Altarito extension. But yeah, in general, I prefer like booting from a USB device.
And CDs probably, I don't know if CDs support X2 or not.
Oh, you can format a block. The question asked is, does ext2 support being on a read-only media? Yeah, I think it would. The underlying thing, even with a CD, it's still just a block device. The only difference is you can't write to it unless it's like a multi-session DVD, and you can do packet writing. But that starts getting really confusing. By the way, the file system that you use on DVDs, you can format USB devices with that, just as a call out. If you format a USB device like you do a DVD, it's readable, writable in every operating system. Windows, Linux, and Mac.
ISO
It has a few other
9660.
quid
What?
pro quos.
ISO 9660.
No, UDF, it's the
Oh, UDF, okay.
Yeah, UDF file system is read-write. Since XP on Windows, before XP it was not read-write, but it's read-write on everything. It supports huge files, supports POSIX file permissions. It's really cool. It's support in
I
auto
remember
mounting.
formatting DVD RAMs that way. So
What?
I remember formatting DVD RAMs
Yeah.
as UDF. So
There's a lot of different profiles for it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So Packstrap. Actually, I kind of like the Linux from scratch approach we're doing. So I'm just going to create a dev directory. Because I really want to see what happens. It'll unmount when it reboots, right? I'm not sure if I was supposed to put anything in the dev directory. It's not quite clear. I should have looked at the existing working one before UDEV is running on it.
I think UDEV creates.
I think it'll create everything.
Creates the devices, yeah.
It won't create the directory.
It won't create the directory, but I think it does create the device connection points, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm. Well, my biggest thing I posted on the slug list is I would like to try doing the same thing with the UEFI system that actually requires this signed boot thing. I can boot UEFI on my laptop, but it will boot whatever. You've got one that's specific? All right, I'll get with you later on. There'll be an addendum to this. Because my laptop, if you name, I figured whatever the special file name is for the default image on UEFI, my laptop will boot that. It doesn't matter if it's signed or not. It's just like, oh, there's a file, boot. Because it was not designed for Windows 8. It was just under the wire. For Windows 8, they have to have this support for the secure boot, which has to only be disableable in the BIOS by the user. Is that not true?
No, it is true.
Okay.
It's frustrating to me.
Yeah, so my goal was to basically have an update for this talk, so you have some really modern hardware and you need to boot it. And as long as it's not ARM, we're good, because the ARM bootloader is completely a mess, or completely locked down. But I believe there has to be backdoors for x86 at the time. So, although I guess if you have a signed, the basic thing is if you get a signed bootloader, like a signed version of SysLinux, then you're good on anything. Note that this is SysLinux 4. SysLinux 6 is the one that supports UEFI, and there was a release of it. Watch it not have the dev directory again. Oh no!
Running cleanup books, so when UDEV works.
Oh, it's running.
There you go.
Yep, the prompt is just there. So we're running inside the file system. So this right here is the barest metal, no, not the barest, but the barest you can do with copying random files around from a running system. There are three moving components of this. I say moving, 3 configurable components of this, 3 required components of this. Is the kernel? Well, okay, we'll go over all the components since there's actually not as many. There's the bootloader that you can't see that's in the first few bytes of the device, which loads this ldlinux.sys, which loads vnlinux, or VM Linux, which loads the initramfs with the files that it needs to turn on UDEV to load kernel modules, which then basically executes, well, spin init, which is BusyBox, and so that's it. The entire size of the system, excluding the few bytes in the bootloader, there's no DF.
Does BusyBox do DF?
Well, I'm not sure how to get a list of BusyBox applets.
Why don't you just try?
Help?
Busy box?
Oh, tab completion is of course not going to work either.
Not file.
Because you don't have it in there.
Oh, yes, you're right.
/BusyBox.
Ah.
So it has a lot of stuff, but I can't see. Man, MD5 some, really? Message. So I think this is a pretty full size version of BusyBox, but what is it missing?
I don't know. Shift page up.
SU, TFTPD.
I could be wrong, but silicon's not a metal.
DOS.
So slog VM?
Unzip, really?
Even as UUD code and encode.
Yeah.
Man.
Unzip, not
When's the
file.
last time I've ever used that?
You don't have any path variables, have you?
I thought when BusyBox was running as SH that it automatically would execute any applet name internally. I think that's a compile time option though. So, is it not?
Try BusyBox DF and see what that does.
Yeah, there's no proc file system mounted right now. Thank God.
Can you do DF to the device?
I'm gonna mount proc first. Oh, there's no proc directory in there, so. Yeah, I believe the initramfs also is responsible for mounting that, but only if it exists.
Somehow that makes sense.
It really should just make the directories. I mean, I guess it's never going to not exist except in pathological cases that we create. But this pathological case is really good for education, in my opinion, because my whole thing I started with this is, oh, bootable USB disks are so hard. Where's the RAMFS and this and that? And it's not.